It was a quiet morning when Mira received the call that would change her life forever. She had been sipping her usual cup of coffee, staring blankly out of the small kitchen window in her modest apartment, when the phone rang. The voice on the other end was calm, but carried a weight of formality that instantly made her heart skip. "Mira Thompson?" the woman asked. "I am calling from the estate office of your grandmother, Eleanor Voss. I regret to inform you that your grandmother has passed away." Mira froze, the coffee slipping slightly in her hand. Her grandmother had always seemed distant, almost like a story from another life rather than someone she truly knew. She had visited Eleanor only a few times in her childhood, always greeted by the scent of old books and the soft hum of machinery echoing from rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. Yet, the grandmother she remembered had told stories of stars, of planets far beyond the solar system, and of people who had once traveled to the edges of the galaxy. Mira had always thought they were just stories, nothing more than the ramblings of an imaginative old woman. But the voice on the phone made her realize that those stories might not have been as impossible as she once believed. The estate was situated on the outskirts of the city, in a neighborhood that had once been quiet but had grown crowded with towering buildings and busy streets. Mira arrived late afternoon, the sky turning a soft pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. She had never seen the mansion in its full size before. It was enormous, older than any building in the city, with towers that seemed to reach into the clouds and windows that glimmered even in the fading light. The doors opened as if they had been expecting her, and a polite, formal lawyer led her inside, where everything smelled faintly of wood polish and the lingering trace of something else metallic and strange, almost like machinery. The lawyer, a man with thinning hair and glasses, handed Mira a small envelope. "Your grandmother left specific instructions for you," he said. Mira hesitated, hands trembling slightly as she opened it. Inside was a single key, small and heavy, and a folded piece of parchment. On it, intricate lines formed a map. But not like any map she had seen before. It was filled with star systems, planetary symbols, and strange markings that seemed to shimmer faintly under the light. At the bottom, in elegant handwriting, were the words, "To Mira, may this guide you where I once walked." Before Mira could ask a single question, the lawyer continued, "There is something else. Your grandmother left something for you. Something she wished for you to find. It is unusual." He led her down a series of corridors, past rooms filled with paintings of distant landscapes and shelves of books with titles she could barely pronounce. Finally, they arrived at a massive hangar, hidden behind a door that had no handle, only a keyhole. Mira's fingers shook as she slid the key into it. The door swung open smoothly, revealing a spaceship unlike anything she had ever seen. It gleamed under soft, white lights, sleek and elegant, yet powerful and imposing. Mira stepped forward slowly, her heart pounding. The ship was larger than she expected, but it had a sense of familiarity, almost as if it recognized her. Its surface reflected her wide eyes, and panels along the sides seemed to pulse gently, alive in a way she could not explain. A small holographic projection flickered to life in the air before her. It was her grandmother, Eleanor, smiling warmly, though her eyes carried the gravity of someone who had seen far more than most humans could imagine. "Hello, Mira," the hologram said, her voice soft but firm. "If you are seeing this, it means you have found the key and have taken the first step. This ship, and the map you now hold, are not ordinary. They are part of a journey I once undertook, one I could not complete in my time. It is time for you to see what humanity can do, what we are capable of when we choose courage over fear." Mira blinked, trying to absorb what she was seeing. "Grandma, what is this? A spaceship?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Yes," Eleanor's hologram said, "and it is yours. It will respond to you, guide you, protect you. The map will show you places humans once touched but left behind. There is much to learn, Mira, much to discover, and dangers, yes, dangers too. But I trust you. You have something in you that humans have always had: curiosity, courage, the will to see beyond what is known." Mira stepped closer to the ship, running her fingers along its smooth surface. A panel opened at her touch, revealing a cockpit bathed in soft blue light. Seats adjusted automatically as if sensing her presence. Buttons, levers, and displays seemed overwhelming at first. But there was something intuitive about the design, as if it was made not for machines, but for a human mind. She felt a thrill she had never known. A mixture of fear, excitement, and something else possibility. She spent hours exploring, learning, and marveling. A kitchen, and even a small garden chamber, where plants grew under artificial sunlight. It was like stepping into a world her grandmother had built for someone capable of seeing the stars up close. Mira could not stop herself from touching the map, tracing the lines with her finger. Each star system seemed to pulse faintly in response, and the ship's lights flickered, as if acknowledging her interest. The first night in the hangar, Mira slept fitfully in the cockpit, dreams filled with distant planets, strange creatures, and cities that floated among the clouds of alien worlds. She dreamed of humans walking among stars, not confined to Earth, and of her grandmother, guiding them silently. She woke with a start, heart racing, realizing that the stories she had once dismissed as fantasy might have been the truth. By the next morning, she had made a decision. She could not stay on Earth, pretending the inheritance was merely an eccentricity of an old woman. The ship was calling to her, the map pulsing with light as if it had been waiting for her touch. She activated the engines, and they hummed to life with a sound both mechanical and organic. The hangar doors opened automatically, revealing the city beneath bathed in early morning sunlight. Mira felt a pang of hesitation leaving Earth, leaving everything familiar, but she remembered her grandmother's words. Courage, curiosity, humanity. That was what had brought her grandmother this far, and now it was her turn. The ship lifted effortlessly, gliding over the city and into the clouds. Mira pressed a hand to the controls, feeling them respond to her thoughts and emotions. It was as if the ship could sense her intent, guiding her forward while keeping her safe. As Earth fell away beneath her, she realized that this was more than a journey through space. It was a journey into understanding what humans were capable of, what she herself was capable of. Hours passed as she navigated the first few systems marked on the map. Strange celestial formations passed by, glowing nebulas, and asteroids that shimmered like diamonds. Mira realized she had never felt such wonder, such awe, even when she had stared at the night sky from her apartment balcony. The universe was bigger, stranger, and more beautiful than she had ever imagined. Yet, even in her excitement, she knew there would be challenges. Eleanor's hologram had warned of dangers. Mira could already sense that the map was not merely a guide. It was a puzzle, a test of sorts. She found herself thinking deeply, planning her moves, wondering why her grandmother had left her this responsibility. Was it simply inheritance? Or was there something more, something she needed to understand about humanity itself? As night fell in her first orbit around the outer planets, Mira allowed herself a moment of reflection. She remembered the stories her grandmother had told, about humans reaching distant stars, about civilizations that had risen and fallen, about choices that defined the future. The ship's gentle hum seemed to echo these thoughts, reminding her that she was part of something much larger than herself. Somewhere deep inside, Mira felt a spark of pride and excitement. She was not just a young woman from Earth anymore. She was a traveler, an explorer, someone capable of unlocking secrets that humans had long forgotten. And though fear lingered at the edges of her mind, she refused to let it dominate. Humanity had always pushed forward, against odds, against limits, against fear. And now, she would do the same. The first part of her journey was ending, but the adventure was just beginning. Mira gazed out at the endless expanse of stars. Each one a possibility, each one a story waiting to be discovered. Somewhere among them lay answers, challenges, and perhaps the true meaning of her grandmother's life among the stars. She smiled softly, knowing she was ready. The ship hummed in response, a living partner in a journey that would take her farther than she had ever dreamed, into the heart of humanity's legacy among the cosmos. And so, With a deep breath and a racing heart, Mira set a course for the first coordinate on her grandmother's map, unaware that every choice she made from here on would shape not just her own destiny, but the story of humanity among the stars. The hum of the ship was the only sound Mira could hear as she left the solar system behind. The stars stretched endlessly before her, some glowing in familiar patterns, others twinkling in colors she had never imagined. Each point of light on the map seemed alive, pulsing faintly, as if the universe itself acknowledged her presence. She realized that her grandmother's map was not just a guide, it was a living record of where humans had been, and perhaps where they could go again. Mira spent the first few hours studying the controls and the map. The ship was astonishingly intuitive. When she thought of moving toward a particular system, the engines responded smoothly, adjusting their speed and trajectory without hesitation. Panels and displays shifted to provide the information she needed, almost anticipating her questions before she asked them. It was more than technology. It was a partnership. And Mira felt a strange, comforting connection to it. Her first stop was a small, rocky planet orbiting a dying star. According to the map, humans had once visited this world centuries ago, leaving behind small settlements that had long since been abandoned. As she approached, she saw the remnants of buildings scattered across barren plains. They were crude by modern standards, rough structures designed for survival rather than comfort. But they spoke of determination. Someone had been here. Someone had tried to live among the stars. Mira landed the ship carefully, feeling a thrill as the ramp descended and she stepped onto the dusty surface. The air was thin, but breathable, with the ship's filtration system. She walked among the ruins, her fingers tracing the edges of the walls. Some structures contained old tools, fragments of clothing, and mechanical devices that had long since ceased to function. Despite the desolation, Mira could feel the echoes of human effort. The stubborn will to survive in a place where survival was almost impossible. She paused at a small plaque embedded in the ground, written in a language she barely recognized but could intuitively understand thanks to the ship's translation systems. It read, "To those who come after us, know that courage matters more than strength, and curiosity more than fear." Mira smiled, feeling a connection to the humans who had been here before her. They were like her grandmother, people who dared to venture beyond what others thought possible. As night fell on the planet, the stars shone with unusual clarity. Mira stood outside, looking at constellations she had never seen from Earth. The map in her hands pulsed gently, almost as if encouraging her to keep moving forward. She realized that the journey was not only about discovering new places, it was about understanding humanity itself. The skills, the courage, and the choices humans had made in the past were lessons she needed to absorb. The next morning, she prepared the ship for departure. As the engines roared to life, a sudden alert flashed on the main screen. Mira froze. It was a signal from an unknown source, approaching quickly. Within moments, she could see the outline of another vessel in the distance. Unlike her ship, it was sleek, aggressive-looking, and armed with devices that hummed ominously. Mira's stomach sank. She realized immediately that she was not the only one interested in her grandmother's secrets. The other ship came closer, scanning and broadcasting a message. "This is the Interstellar Recovery Corporation. Surrender your vessel immediately, and no harm will come to you." Mira's mind raced. She had no intention of giving up the ship, nor the map. She had inherited this for a reason, and she could feel in her heart that her grandmother had trusted her to protect it. Thinking quickly, Mira activated the ship's defensive systems. The vessel responded instantly, shields rising, energy pulses aligning along the hull. It was almost as if the ship itself recognized the threat and was ready to act. Mira piloted with all her focus, weaving through asteroid fields, using the terrain of space itself to her advantage. The pursuing ship fired, but the blasts deflected harmlessly against the shield. Mira could feel her pulse quicken, but also a strange thrill. She was finally experiencing the kind of adventure her grandmother had hinted at in stories: danger, strategy, and the test of human ingenuity. Hours passed as she navigated the chase, finding creative ways to lose the pursuing ship. The map guided her to hidden routes, narrow passages between asteroids, and gravitational currents that the pursuing vessel could not anticipate. Mira realized something extraordinary. The ship seemed to respond to her decisions, not just her commands. It adapted, predicted, and assisted in ways that made her feel like she was working with a living partner rather than controlling a machine. After a tense night, she finally found a small, uncharted moon to hide the ship. She descended quietly, landing in a dense crater shielded from sensors. Mira took a deep breath, her hands still trembling slightly from adrenaline. She had survived her first confrontation, and she had learned something important. Humans, when clever and brave, could overcome threats even far beyond Earth. While hiding, Mira explored the moon on foot, finding strange formations and glowing crystals embedded in the rock. The air was thin, but the ship's environmental systems allowed her to breathe comfortably. She studied the crystals, marveling at their patterns and faint energy signatures. The universe, she realized, was filled with wonders that humans had barely begun to understand. Each discovery was a reminder that her grandmother had been right. There was more to human potential than she had ever imagined. Several days later, the coast seemed clear. Mira lifted off carefully, continuing her journey following the coordinates on the map. She found herself entering a nebula, a cloud of glowing gas and dust that obscured her view of the stars. It was beautiful and dangerous, filled with turbulence that could easily damage a ship. Mira adjusted the controls, and the vessel responded with smooth, fluid movements, guiding her safely through the shifting currents. She felt an exhilarating sense of connection, not just with the ship, but with the universe itself. In the heart of the nebula, she discovered the remains of a human probe, long abandoned but still transmitting faint signals. Mira examined the data and realized it contained messages from humans who had traveled far beyond Earth centuries ago. They spoke of colonies, experiments, and attempts to survive in extreme environments. It was a record of human courage and adaptability, preserved in space like a message in a bottle. Mira felt a deep pride. Humans were small compared to the cosmos, yet their spirit had always pushed them forward, leaving traces of themselves among the stars. But the journey was not without danger. Mira encountered spatial anomalies, small bursts of energy that could fry circuits or warp time around her. She learned to navigate them using both intuition and the ship's assistance, realizing that the universe would test anyone who sought to travel its depths. Each challenge reminded her of the lessons she had learned from her grandmother. Fear was natural, but courage and cleverness could overcome almost anything. One night, as she rested in the ship's small sleeping chamber, Mira received another message from her grandmother's hologram. "You are learning, Mira," the hologram said. "You are beginning to understand what it means to be human among the stars. Remember, it is not strength alone that guides us, but intelligence, creativity, and the courage to act when needed. You are ready to see more than I ever could in my time, and the universe will test you. Trust yourself, and trust what humans can do." The words filled Mira with both comfort and determination. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, but she was no longer afraid. She had the ship, the map, and the lessons of those who had come before. More importantly, she had her own courage, and a growing sense of pride in humanity's ability to rise above impossible odds. Following the next set of coordinates, Mira arrived at a small human colony hidden on a distant planet. Unlike the ruins she had visited before, this settlement was abandoned but showed signs of careful planning and advanced technology. The buildings were made from materials that adapted to the environment, protecting inhabitants from harsh weather and radiation. It was clear that humans had once thrived here, leaving behind a record of their ingenuity. Mira explored carefully, noting how every structure reflected thought, creativity, and practicality. She could feel the echoes of the people who had lived here, their determination, their curiosity, and their drive to explore. As she delved deeper into the settlement, she found a central chamber filled with devices and holographic recordings. The messages were from scientists, explorers, and engineers who had worked together to survive and innovate. In an environment far from home, Mira realized that these humans had not only endured but had left lessons for those who might follow. Their ingenuity and collaboration were reminders that humanity's strength came not just from individual brilliance, but from working together and daring to explore the unknown. Suddenly, an alarm echoed through the ship. Mira's heart leapt. The Interstellar Recovery Corporation had found her again. She quickly assessed the situation. The new vessel was approaching, faster and more determined than before. Mira knew she had to act carefully. Using the terrain of the planet, she piloted the ship through narrow canyons and over ridges, forcing the pursuing ship to slow down. Her ship's intuition worked perfectly, guiding her to safe routes and keeping her just out of reach. Hours passed, but Mira remained focused. She realized that the chase was more than a threat, it was a test. Her grandmother's ship was teaching her, showing her how human ingenuity, quick thinking, and courage could overcome even the most advanced opponents. Mira felt exhilarated, alive in a way she had never been before. She was no longer just an ordinary young woman. She was a traveler, an explorer, and a human capable of extraordinary things. By the end of the chase, Mira found herself in a dense asteroid field, its rocks glinting like diamonds against the blackness of space. Using the ship's adaptive systems and her own quick thinking, she maneuvered through the field with skill, finally losing the pursuing vessel. Safe for now, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. Looking out at the endless expanse of stars, Mira knew her journey had only just begun. The map held more secrets, more worlds to explore, and more lessons about humanity. Every challenge she faced was a reminder that humans were remarkable, not because they were the strongest, but because they were clever, courageous, and unafraid to venture into the unknown. With renewed determination, Mira set the ship on course for the next coordinate. The stars stretched endlessly before her, filled with possibility and adventure. And as the ship responded to her thoughts and her touch, Mira felt a deep connection not only to the vessel but to the human spirit itself. The spirit that had carried her grandmother, and countless others, across the universe. The universe was vast and dangerous, but Mira was ready. She was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. She had inherited more than a ship and a map. She had inherited the courage, intelligence, and curiosity that made humans special. And as the stars rushed past her, she knew she was beginning to understand the true meaning of her grandmother's gift and the legacy that humanity could leave among the stars. Mira adjusted the ship's controls as she entered the next star system on the map. The stars here were unfamiliar, glowing in shades of green and violet that made her blink in surprise. She realized that each system she visited seemed more alive than the last, as if the universe itself were guiding her toward something important. The map in her hands pulsed gently, directing her toward a planet marked with a bright, central symbol. It was larger than any she had visited before, and the ship hummed in excitement, almost as if it could sense the significance of this location. As she descended through the planet's atmosphere, Mira was awestruck. Vast oceans shimmered beneath her, surrounded by towering mountains that glinted in strange colors under the alien sun. Cities lay in ruins on the surface, but even in decay, they radiated intelligence and careful planning. It was clear that humans had once thrived here, building structures that adapted to the environment and withstood time and nature. Mira landed carefully near a large, collapsed dome. She felt a shiver of anticipation. This was not just another abandoned settlement. There was something more, something waiting to be discovered. Stepping out of the ship, Mira felt the wind against her face. The air was breathable with the ship's help, carrying a faint scent of minerals and vegetation. She walked among the ruins, noticing that each building and pathway was designed with purpose. Some structures contained tools, instruments, and devices that were clearly advanced, far beyond anything she had seen on Earth. She examined one, pressing a few buttons, and a holographic projection sprang to life, showing humans walking among machines and vehicles designed for exploration. They moved with confidence and skill, working together to survive and innovate. Mira felt a deep pride. Humanity had left more than ruins here. It had left evidence of its ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. Following the holographic projections, Mira discovered a central chamber beneath the dome. Inside, a series of consoles and screens lit up as she approached. On one of the main displays, a message flickered to life. It was her grandmother, Eleanor, but recorded long before her passing. "If you are seeing this, Mira, it means you have reached the heart of the map," the hologram said. "What lies here is the true test. Humans have always been explorers, thinkers, and dreamers. But what sets us apart is how we face challenges, and how we choose to act when confronted with uncertainty and danger. Here, you will find clues about humanity's greatest potential, and you will need every skill you possess to understand it." Mira felt a thrill run through her. This was the moment her grandmother had hinted at. The point in the journey where she would see the essence of what humans were capable of. She studied the consoles, noticing complex patterns of energy readings, star charts, and coordinates. They were not just data. They were puzzles, requiring insight, logic, and intuition. Mira spent hours deciphering them, her mind racing as she pieced together information about human colonies spread across the stars, some thriving, some abandoned, and some lost entirely to time. As she worked, Mira realized that the map did more than guide. It reacted to her choices. When she made a decision based on careful reasoning or creativity, new paths opened. When she hesitated or doubted, the map seemed to pause, waiting for her to commit. It was as if her grandmother had designed the journey not just to show her locations, but to test her mind, her spirit, and her understanding of what it meant to be human. Suddenly, the ship alerted her to an approaching vessel. Mira's heart raced. It was the Interstellar Recovery Corporation again. They had been relentless, tracking her through multiple systems. She quickly scanned the sensors and saw that the vessel was heavily armed, faster than anything she had encountered before. Mira knew she could not outrun them in a straight chase this time. She would need strategy, creativity, and courage, exactly what the map was teaching her. Mira piloted the ship through narrow valleys and over jagged cliffs, using terrain to her advantage. The pursuing vessel fired, but her ship's adaptive systems shielded her and calculated the safest routes. She realized, with a mix of fear and excitement, that the ship seemed almost alive, responding to her decisions with precision and subtle guidance. Mira had never felt such a connection before, a sense that the universe itself was aiding her because she was acting with intelligence and courage. Hours later, after an exhausting chase, Mira found a hidden cave system beneath the mountains. She landed the ship inside, the walls of rock concealing her from sensors. The pursuit had ended, at least for now, and Mira allowed herself a moment to breathe. She reflected on the chase and realized that every challenge she faced was teaching her something about humanity. Humans were not the strongest creatures, but they were clever, resourceful, and capable of rising above danger when they relied on intelligence and heart. Inside the cave, Mira discovered a series of ancient murals carved into the walls. They depicted humans exploring strange planets, building cities, and interacting with unknown species. Each scene told a story of courage, curiosity, and collaboration. Mira ran her fingers over the carvings, imagining the people who had once lived and worked among the stars. She felt a deep pride in their achievements and a growing determination to honor their legacy. As she explored further, Mira found a chamber containing a massive star map, far larger and more detailed than her grandmother's. This map showed the locations of human colonies, some thriving, some abandoned, and some that had disappeared entirely. Mira realized that humans had once spread across the stars, leaving evidence of their ingenuity and resilience everywhere they went. But they had also faced setbacks, dangers, and failures. The map was a reminder that exploration required courage, intelligence, and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Mira spent days studying the star map and exploring the surrounding ruins. She discovered data logs, journals, and recordings left by humans who had once lived here. They spoke of challenges overcome, of creativity applied to survival, and of the importance of collaboration. Mira felt a sense of awe. Humanity had achieved remarkable things, and yet much had been forgotten or lost over time. She understood that her journey was not just about exploring the stars, it was about reconnecting with the legacy of human courage and ingenuity. One evening, as she rested in the ship, Mira received another message from her grandmother's hologram. "You are beginning to understand," Eleanor said. "The essence of humanity is not in our strength or technology, but in our minds and hearts. The map you follow is a guide, but it is also a mirror. It reflects what humans are capable of, and it will respond to the choices you make. Remember, intelligence, creativity, and courage are the keys to survival and discovery." Inspired, Mira decided to follow the map to the next coordinate, a system marked with a symbol she had not yet seen. The journey was long, and the path took her through asteroid belts, nebulae, and gravitational anomalies. Each obstacle required careful thought, testing her problem-solving skills and her ability to adapt. Mira realized that the challenges were not arbitrary, they were designed to cultivate the very traits that made humans special. Finally, she arrived at a planet unlike any other. It was covered in lush forests, vast rivers, and mountains that stretched high into the clouds. The air was breathable, and the environment seemed welcoming. Yet, there were signs of human presence everywhere. Structures built in harmony with nature, intricate machines designed to harness the planet's resources without damaging it, and inscriptions praising curiosity, collaboration, and perseverance. Mira walked among the ruins, feeling a profound connection to those who had lived here. In the center of the planet, she found a massive temple-like structure. Inside, the walls were lined with holographic records and artifacts. The records showed humans working together to explore space, sharing knowledge, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Mira realized that this place had been a center of learning and innovation, a hub where humans had gathered to understand the universe and their place within it. She felt a surge of pride and determination. Humans had always been capable of greatness, and now it was her turn to continue the journey. But the adventure was far from over. As Mira studied the temple, she sensed movement outside. The Interstellar Recovery Corporation had tracked her again. This time, they were not just pursuing, they were attempting to capture the secrets of the planet. Mira quickly assessed the situation, realizing that she could not rely on speed alone. She would need to use intelligence, strategy, and creativity. She activated the ship's cloaking systems and devised a plan to outsmart the pursuers rather than outrun them. Using the terrain and her knowledge of the planet, Mira lured the pursuers into a series of traps and obstacles. Her ship moved with precision, anticipating the movements of the enemy vessel. When the pursuing ship attempted to enter a narrow canyon, the walls shifted slightly, creating a barrier that forced them to retreat. Mira realized that the ship was not just a tool, it was an ally, responding to her decisions and helping her navigate danger with ingenuity. After a tense and exhausting confrontation, Mira finally managed to lose the pursuers. She landed the ship in a hidden valley, the planet's natural formations concealing her from detection. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to relax. She had survived another test, another challenge designed to push her limits and teach her the essence of human capability. As night fell, Mira looked up at the stars, feeling a profound sense of connection. Humanity had reached these worlds before, faced unimaginable dangers, and left behind evidence of their intelligence, courage, and creativity. Mira understood that her journey was not just about exploration, it was about carrying forward the legacy of those who had come before, proving that humans could rise above challenges and leave a mark on the universe. With renewed determination, Mira set the ship on course for the next coordinate. The stars stretched endlessly before her, filled with possibility, danger, and discovery. And as the ship responded to her touch and decisions, Mira felt a deep sense of purpose. She was no longer just an observer of humanity's past, she was an active participant in its future, ready to face whatever the universe had in store and to continue the journey her grandmother had begun. Mira adjusted the controls as the ship approached the final coordinates marked on her grandmother's map. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, distant suns glowing in unfamiliar colors, each one a promise of discovery. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Everything she had learned on her journey, the courage, the cleverness, the lessons from abandoned colonies had led her to this moment. The map pulsed gently in her hands, brighter than ever, as if urging her forward. The planet that emerged in view was enormous, its surface a tapestry of mountains, rivers, and sprawling forests. Yet, there was something extraordinary about it. The landscape appeared almost deliberate, structured in patterns too precise to be natural. Mira could sense that this place was important, that it held answers her grandmother had promised. She landed the ship carefully, in a vast valley, surrounded by towering peaks. The air was breathable, warm, and carried a faint hum, like a vibration resonating through the ground itself. As she stepped out, Mira noticed enormous structures, partially hidden by vegetation. Towers of metal and glass stretched into the sky, their surfaces etched with symbols she had seen before in her grandmother's notes and on the map. The place was abandoned, but it radiated intelligence, a civilization that had once thrived here. Mira moved cautiously, aware that this final destination might hold both revelations and dangers. Inside one of the main structures, she found what appeared to be a control hub. Screens and consoles lit up as she approached, displaying complex star charts and holographic simulations. A familiar figure flickered into life, a hologram of her grandmother. "Welcome, Mira," Eleanor's voice said, calm and gentle. "You have made it to the heart of the map. What you see here is the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity. These records show where humans have traveled, what we have achieved, and what potential we have yet to fulfill. But remember, knowledge alone is not enough. Humanity's greatness comes from courage, creativity, and compassion. You will need all three to understand what lies ahead." Mira studied the displays, noticing patterns she had not seen before. Each planet, each colony, and each structure represented choices humans had made. Some had succeeded, thriving in harsh conditions, building communities and technology that endured. Others had failed, lost to mistakes, conflicts, or environmental hazards. Mira realized that the map was not just a record, it was a lesson in decision-making, ethics, and ingenuity, designed to show the true potential of humanity. As she explored further, the ship's sensors detected movement outside. Her heart leapt. The Interstellar Recovery Corporation had tracked her again. But this time, they were approaching with overwhelming force. Mira quickly assessed the situation. There was no chance to outrun them in the vast open space of the valley. She needed a plan. And fast. Mira thought back to everything she had learned. The abandoned colonies, the challenges of navigation, and the adaptive capabilities of her grandmother's ship. She realized that brute force alone would not win this encounter. Instead, she would rely on intelligence, creativity, and the ship's remarkable systems. Carefully, she scanned the terrain, identifying natural features she could use. Narrow passes, cliffs, and energy fields generated by the planet itself could be turned to her advantage. The approaching ships fired, but Mira activated the ship's defensive shields and maneuvered toward a cliffside passage. The pursuing vessels were faster, but they lacked familiarity with the terrain. Mira guided her ship through twisting paths, using gravitational currents and energy surges to mask her movements. The enemy struggled to keep up, their systems unable to adapt as fluidly as her ship. Mira's pulse raced, but she felt a surge of confidence. This was more than survival. It was a demonstration of what humans could accomplish when they applied their minds and hearts. Hours passed as Mira executed her plan, finally leading the pursuers into a trap of her own design. Using the ship's cloaking abilities and the natural energy fields, she forced the enemy vessels to retreat, unable to predict her movements or counter her strategies. Mira landed the ship on a plateau overlooking the valley, catching her breath. She realized that this final confrontation had been another lesson. Humans thrived not because of strength alone, but because of intelligence, adaptability, and courage under pressure. With the threat gone, Mira returned to the control hub. She felt anticipation building as she activated the central console, revealing a hidden chamber beneath the structure. The chamber contained a massive holographic model of a distant star system, far beyond anything she had visited. At its center was a large station, shaped like a luminous crystal, radiating energy that pulsed in rhythm with the map. Mira stepped closer, sensing the importance of what she was about to uncover. A new hologram appeared, not of her grandmother, but of an earlier human explorer. If you have reached this place, it means you have proven yourself worthy of understanding humanity's potential, the figure said. What you see before you is the culmination of human exploration, technology, and wisdom. Our ancestors traveled far beyond Earth, establishing colonies and creating knowledge systems to guide future generations. But our greatest achievement is not in our machines. It is in our choices, our creativity, and our courage. Mira listened intently, absorbing the weight of the message. She realized that her journey was more than an adventure. It was a test of character. Every decision she had made, from navigating abandoned colonies to escaping the pursuing corporation, had reflected the qualities that set humans apart. Courage, curiosity, and ingenuity had guided her, proving that humanity was capable of extraordinary achievements. The hologram continued. You now have the opportunity to continue what we began. The universe is vast, and humans have left traces everywhere. Your task is to connect the colonies, protect our knowledge, and ensure that humanity reaches its full potential. But remember, it is not power or technology alone that will carry you forward. It is your heart, your mind, and your willingness to make choices guided by wisdom and compassion. Mira felt a sense of clarity. The map, the ship, and the journey itself had prepared her for this moment. Humanity's legacy was not just about exploration. It was about what humans did with what they discovered. Every planet visited, every challenge faced, and every decision made contributed to the ongoing story of human achievement. Mira knew that her role was to carry that story forward, to continue building on the foundations laid by those who had come before. Determined, she activated the ship's systems and prepared to continue the journey. The vessel seemed to respond eagerly, pulsing with light and energy, ready to assist her in connecting the scattered human colonies. Mira set a course for the nearest lost settlement, eager to see what she could discover and restore. She understood that each world she visited would require intelligence, creativity, and courage to navigate and rebuild. As the ship lifted from the plateau, Mira reflected on the lessons she had learned. Humans were remarkable not because they were the strongest species, but because they were resourceful, adaptable, and courageous. Their curiosity had driven them to the stars, their creativity had allowed them to survive in alien worlds, and their empathy had guided them in forming communities and making ethical choices. Mira felt proud to be part of this legacy, and she vowed to honor it in everything she did. The journey ahead was filled with unknown dangers, discoveries, and challenges. Mira knew that she would encounter obstacles, from natural hazards to hostile forces seeking to exploit human knowledge. But she also knew that she was equipped to face them. Her grandmother's ship, the map, and the lessons embedded in every step of her journey had prepared her to act with intelligence, courage, and heart. Mira set the ship on a steady course, her eyes on the stars ahead. Each point of light represented a potential discovery, a challenge, or a community in need of guidance. She felt a deep connection to humanity's past, present, and future, understanding that the choices she made would influence not only her journey but the trajectory of human civilization among the stars. Days turned into weeks as Mira traveled from one star system to another. She restored communications with abandoned colonies, repaired essential infrastructure, and uncovered lost knowledge that had been scattered across the galaxy. Every action reinforced the lessons she had learned. Humans thrived because of their ingenuity, their empathy, and their courage to face the unknown. Mira began to see the map not just as a tool, but as a living testament to the qualities that defined her species. In one settlement, she encountered remnants of a human community that had struggled to survive after losing contact with the wider galaxy. Mira used her knowledge and the ship's capabilities to restore essential systems and teach them methods to adapt to their environment. The people were amazed by her skill and the wisdom embedded in the ship. They had forgotten much of what humanity had achieved. But Mira helped them remember, inspiring hope and confidence in the power of human potential. As she moved from system to system, Mira realized that the true gift of her grandmother's inheritance was not the ship or the map alone, but the understanding of what it meant to be human. Humans were explorers, thinkers, builders, and dreamers. They faced impossible odds and often succeeded because they combined intelligence, courage, and compassion. Mira carried this truth with her, using it to guide her actions and decisions as she navigated the galaxy. Eventually, Mira returned to the crystal-like station she had discovered. She activated the central console once more, reviewing the records of human exploration and achievements. The hologram of her grandmother appeared again, smiling warmly. "You have done well, Mira," Eleanor said. "You have not only followed the path I left for you, but you have proven that humans are capable of greatness. The journey continues, and you will carry our legacy forward. Remember, every choice matters, and every action reflects the qualities that make humans extraordinary." Mira felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had completed the journey her grandmother had begun, but she also knew that her adventure was far from over. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries, challenges, and communities in need of guidance. She was ready to continue, confident that humanity's potential was limitless when courage, intelligence, and empathy were combined. As the ship soared into the stars once more, Mira looked out at the endless expanse of space, her heart filled with pride, determination, and wonder. She was no longer just a young woman from Earth. She was a traveler, a protector of humanity's legacy, and a witness to the extraordinary potential of her species. The universe stretched before her, filled with possibilities, discoveries, and the promise of a future shaped by human courage, creativity, and compassion. Mira set a course for the next star system, the map glowing softly in her hands. She knew that the journey would be long, filled with dangers and triumphs alike. But she was ready. Humanity had left its mark on the stars, and she would ensure that its story continued, inspiring generations to come. And as she piloted the ship through the vast, glittering expanse of the galaxy, Mira understood the true meaning of her grandmother's gift. Humans were special, not because of the technology they built, but because of the heart, mind, and courage that drove them to reach for the stars. The stars shimmered ahead, and Mira smiled. She was part of a story far larger than herself, a story of exploration, resilience, and hope. And she knew that wherever humans went, they would leave a legacy. Not just in the machines they created, but in the choices they made, the courage they showed, and the dreams they dared to follow among the endless cosmos.